Popcorn Junkies, welcome. Apologies for Nanny Di's bruised face. We didn't particularly agree on this film and it got a bit physical afterwards.
That's not true.
We had a bit of a tussle and she kind of came around to seeing it my way, which is what we're going to talk about now. So here we are reviewing Possessor, which is, look, there's very few films knocking about, and this has just been released on Apple iTunes, I guess. It's most notable for the fact that this film is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, who is the son of David Cronenberg, who is renowned for his sci-fi dystopian body horror films. Naked Lunch, Scanners, The Fly, most famously with Jeff Goldblum, Dead Ringers. So this is Possessor. It's billed as a science fiction psychological horror film. There you go. There's a huge number of genres to mash together.
Yeah, which actually I think it is when you put it
together. I think it's an accurate description of it. It stars Andrea Riseborough, who I know most readily from Mandy, the Nick Cage film, and she's been in quite a few dramas, hasn't she?
She was in
Bloodlines on Netflix, yeah. It also stars Christopher Abbott,
who I think is a positive find.
And what did you know him from?
I know him from they did
Catch-22
adaptation of, which was a good one.
Yes, and also Sean Bean is in there for a sort of cameo, small part. At its simplest, the title says it all, really. Andrea Riseborough works for an unnamed sort of organisation, but whether it's espionage or what, we don't know what its purpose is. We don't know why they're doing what they're doing. But it's a company or an organisation that inserts her brain and her sort of self, essentially, into the heads and bodies of other people in order to get them to commit certain acts.
Yeah.
It's almost like possessing someone else in order to, say, conduct an assassination. Essentially, they transport her into the body of other people. This is her job. And whilst in that body of another person, she conducts an assassination job.
Yeah.
And what clearly is supposed to happen at the end of the assassination job is, in possession of this person, they put a gun in their mouth and you kill the host. Suicide. They call them the host.
Yeah.
And in the process of killing the host, Andrea Riseborough comes back through this machine that's attached to her head to her real world. These are like missions. She goes on a number of missions, a little bit like Catch-22. There's only so many missions you can do. And we picked the story up at the beginning of the film, really, with Andrea Riseborough on sort of, obviously, she's a bit jaded at the edges, finishing a job. And I thought that first part of the film was really good. What did you think? I thought it started really well.
Isn't it? I think it's an amazing beginning. And I want to give a shout out to the girl who plays that first girl that you see for quite a long time on screen, and at that point we don't really know what's happening, do we? So she's got to perform, her face has got to perform, and she does,
and all we see her do is insert something in the top of her head.
The top of her head, and even that alone is a discomforting thing
Deeply
to watch.
Discomforting, Mum.
But very well done, and so, we never see this person again in the rest of the film.
I like the way the film started with the end of a job.
Yes.
It reminded me of the good old-fashioned days of Bond, when Bond was good.
Yes, or like the Harrison Ford thing.
Yeah. And right at the beginning, it was sort of giving me Tenet vibes. You know, it was very nicely shot, lots of sort of steady cam. You're following this woman, you don't know what her mission is. And then if there was any shadow of doubt that you were going to get body horror in this film, there's Andrea Riseborough possessing this other woman. So you see this other woman commits an act of such physical violence against a man at a party.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like that.
Yeah, there is an argument to be had about this film, I suppose, in whether the actual getting rid of people is too violent, it is sort of, gratuitous, which up to a point it might be. It's certainly very
she stabbed this guy about 36 times.
Yeah, but also all the murders all the way through it as the film goes on are there's none of the murders are without absolute visceral horror in a way that go on and on and on. And I'm not sure why that is, because they must know the person's dead.
Yeah, it did. I must admit, you're right. At times it felt like it was leaning on just the obvious body horror of smashing and stabbing someone to death.
I mean, I thought there was going to, after the first one, as you say, which is very near the beginning, where she really goes to town on it. I thought we're gonna find out why she has to do that, why she has to be so
so violent.
Yeah, but we don't. Really,
no, we don't really know.
Not that bit.
No. So I mean, for me, what we see is this. So the possessed person who's killed this person that Andrea Riseborough is in.
Yes.
Tries to shoot herself, but can't.
Yes.
So essentially, Andrea Riseborough can't get rid of the host that she's inhabiting.
Yes.
We come out of that story. I mean, it is ended, and Andrea Riseborough does come back to light, back to her own world, if you like. And I thought, in many regards, I thought this film was at its best when we were navigating almost, and it reminded me of Blade Runner at times.
Yeah,
you know, with Harrison Ford being a sort of jobbing replicant hunter.
Yeah, it reminded me of that a lot.
Yeah, and I thought it was at its best when we were asked to just kind of get to terms with the ordinariness, if you like, of Andrea Riseborough's job.
Yeah.
You know, this is a job, this is what she does. It has a sort of collateral damage on her, you know, it inflicts sort of wear and tear on her. Because we all get that from certain jobs we've done in our lives. You know, it's like, oh God, you know, that's taking the edge off me there.
No,
I'm not sleeping.
Not extreme murder again.
Yeah, exactly. Not possess. Oh no, I've been to work and I've possessed someone and assassinated someone. And God, it does not give you bad. Yeah, it gives you sleepless nights and all that. And I thought, weirdly, that was where some of its strength was. So the whole process of her being sort of sent into people and brought out of people, I thought, was potentially its richest. Because what we then move on to is she then possesses, she's sent on another mission to possess the character played by Christopher Abbott.
Who then becomes the sort of focal point of the film, because we spend far more time with him, don't we?
Well, and the reason we spend so much more time with him, and that's why, and again, this is where I think the richest part of the film was, because Andrea Riseborough is becoming quite jaded in her job and sort of it's taking its toll.
It is.
She can't cleanly get in and cleanly get out of people.
No.
Her company, run by Jennifer Jason Leigh, can't get her in and get her out cleanly without her vomiting blood.
We never know, though, whether that is Andrea Riseborough's jadedness or the fact that Jennifer Jason Leigh is playing
what is Jennifer Jason Leigh playing?
Two ends against the middle, or whatever they say.
Yeah. But
she's
Jennifer Jason Leigh
an untrustworthy character from the beginning to the end.
But don't you think Jennifer Jason Leigh is in life?
She is.
I mean, every time I see her, she's like, "What are you?"
She is.
And the reason we then stay with this one guy's story, played by Christopher Abbott, is
who's amazing.
He's brilliant
in when the camera's on him, at showing you what he's thinking or not thinking.
Yeah, he convincingly plays a man possessed by Andrea Riseborough.
Yes, and he spends most of the time not knowing what the hell's going on.
Doesn't know what's going on. But what happens here is ego feedback kicks in, where Andrea Riseborough isn't quite fully in him, and he hasn't quite fully allowed her to take him over as a host.
Yeah.
So you've got this idea. She's one sentient being in this body, and he's another sentient being in the same body.
Yes.
But whereas normally on these sort of assignments, she cleanly takes over the body and does the job.
Yeah.
A bit of the host is kicking through.
Yes.
And I felt that's what this film was about the way in which this host, Christopher Abbott, was trying to wrestle control back of himself.
Yeah.
And I thought that was its most intriguing aspect.
Too. And I thought some of the sort of visual effect, I mean, to be honest, a lot of this only becomes clear as the film goes on. You sort of don't know what's happening a lot of the time, do you? But I thought there were some absolute standout clever things, which were often the smallest things rather than the most violent things or the most sexual things, were the things like almost like the tearing of something would be in his vision that wasn't
that
quite
was left
right.
though, wasn't it? There was a couple of moments where that was really rich.
So he almost like the Truman Show, where something is on the other side of his vision.
And you said, is this the fabric of his reality? Sort of. It's almost like, and there was literally like, imagine in this shot now, there was like a bit of something, and I thought that was a really rich suggestion where he was fiddling with something which was just like in the air, atomic. I thought they
could have done more with
quantum mechanics. It's dealing with all that kind of what am I, what.
Yeah.
They kind of left that alone though, didn't they? After a couple of attempts.
They did, and I thought they could have done more with that. I would have been more
interested in going that route than all the blood.
Than the violent route. Yeah.
There's a few sex scenes. It's a bit kind of.
It's a graphic one.
Very graphic. So be prepared. It's an 18, and eventually he meets Sean Bean, who's the target of this mission.
Yeah.
And
the one thing we get from that, and we did get it, didn't we, from Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's controlling the whole thing, is that it's the most important job they've ever done. I heard her say that. So, in that sense, Sean Bean, it's a biggie. It's a biggie.
Yeah.
So as he goes to do it, looking very sort of, I have to say, I love him. He's very, very good, Christopher Abbott. But he does spend most of the film looking very bewildered.
He looks perplexed.
Well,
and I would be if I had someone in me and I'm kind of thinking, well, I haven't got agency over what I'm doing.
No, exactly. And he sort of just has to go and start, and he's told to go back and get rid of Sean Bean.
Yeah, it's progress.
So he does try to.
Yeah, and that's pretty horrific, guys.
It is.
And I thought that was gratuitous.
There were a couple. Yes,
I thought that in the
I
finishing off of people, it was a bit too much.
Yeah.
This was at its richest, like David Cronenberg films. So, like his father, it was at its richest when it was dealing with that stuff, not in the most sort of graphic of ways, but in the most subtle of ways, in a sense. I liked all the machinery that was put on Andrea Riseborough's face that was quite organic and biological in its sort of structure.
I sort of started off by thinking, the graphicness didn't bother me because I thought, okay, that's the choice that you make. You either go with
very
that or you
graphic
don't.
sex, by the way.
Graphic sex and graphic violence, I suppose, the two things, and which could be both said gratuitous, I think. But as the film went on, it was very unusual for me. I started to like it more and more, and part of that, I suppose, was the fact that I did think we were sort of dealing with that fabric of reality sort of idea. I mean, what are we supposed to make of the whole mask thing? You know, the mask. I mean, what exactly?
I don't know. I mean, so one of the things that, when you look at the trailer, there's moments of sort of like the poster is this distorted face, which is the mask of Andrea Riseborough on the face of someone else.
One could say changing into a different
exactly.
thing. But,
and this film, in quite a simplistic fashion, I thought, used montages and editing to kind of best represent the transitional points from body to body, or when there was confusion and when there was distortion and when there was essentially what I call almost biological feedback between the two people. It would go to sort of stretched shots, and it would go to montage shots, and it would do flickers. Sometimes it was a bit like Stan Brakhage film, so it would be, and that was kind of obvious. And at first I thought, well, that's a bit simple given the technology we've got now. And then another part of me thought, no, I quite like the fact that it's just simple editing here.
Yeah, they're just.
But then when it got to the mask bit, again, I didn't know whether it was just a bit too obvious and a bit trying too hard to create a poster.
So
I felt like they felt they needed an emblematic image,
because that didn't fit into any other scenario as far as I could tell.
I think for me generally, the film started on a really rich premise. I thought Brandon Cronenberg was clearly continuing the dialogue and discussion that his father has done so well across so many films. I mean, his father's in this film. He's the guy who actually uncredited sends Andrea Riseborough off and puts all the implants in and does all of that. I thought the idea was brilliant. I thought the idea of the sort of the structure of matter in the world and perception could have been played with even more. And I felt it got trapped and hijacked by an obsession with needing the next bloody moment, or the next bloody moment, and the next bloody moment. And I think it kind of didn't need to do that.
No, I mean, what happens at the beginning and sort of would continue to happen if Andrea Riseborough wasn't feeling so rough about the whole thing, is that she's sort of taken in, if you like, by Jennifer Jason Leigh, and then she's sort of interrogated psychologically to see where she is psychologically, and she's shown certain things like a pipe of her grandfather, and she says, this smells like him, and a butterfly, crucially, and there is a difference in what she says about the butterfly in the beginning and at the end, and presumably one is supposed to feel that she's gone AWOL.
Well, I mean, I think we can say at the beginning she says she feels guilty about pinning a butterfly down, and at the end she doesn't say that. Anything. And again, that's incredibly subtle.
Yes.
And there are moments in this film that are deeply unsubtle.
Yes.
And I think where this film was at its strongest was when it was really subtle like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have done with more of her going through stuff and them going through the process of identifying. It reminded me of that scene when she was going through her possessions, which was a very nice, neat device. It reminded me of those scenes in Blade Runner where he's kind of tracking the eye and he's interviewing the replicant. He's trying to work out what their connection is and all that kind of stuff. I think all that sort of stuff's rich. And so
I do, but I think there was an element in this of Blade Runner was sort of overriding it for me, and I felt some of the graphic violence, which is his dad stuff and body horror and blood and gore, to the edges of the frame, really was to take it away from the Blade Runner thing, was almost to make it into that sort of visceral graphic stuff rather than the intellectual stuff.
Okay, but let's sum up. My take on this film is this: I slightly worried that the pressure of being a Cronenberg, and with a surname surname like Cronenberg, it's very hard not to be Cronenberg.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like perhaps he was a bit hijacked by the family tradition. It's like the family business. And with your dad in the film as well, I'd have thought maybe his dad was texting him going, put another bit of blood in, or put another, and he went from, I just thought there were moments of really obvious shock and horror, and I could have done with fewer of those, and I think it could have become a much more introspective film. You've got an actress like Andrea Riseborough who's very good. Christopher Abbott, I thought, as you say, was excellent.
Yeah, he is.
I wasn't convinced by the tussle between her and him. I thought it was quite messily done. There wasn't a sort of, there were moments where I just found the editing a bit leaden and a bit obvious.
Yeah.
So I found it a bit, I was frustrated because I was excited by its ideas, and I think you said this before you kind of turned towards liking it more.
Yeah.
It's a very ambitious film. It's got a lot of very, very ambitious ideas.
Maybe too many. Yeah.
Too many, maybe. And it was just slightly let down by a sort of over-reliance on schlock and gore and shock.
Although, in a way, and I think maybe this is partly what changed my mind towards the end, I quite liked that sort of idea of going back to a simpler life in a way, where when we used to go and see films like Scanners and whatever, a head exploded, it exploded.
Right.
And it was clearly like sort of special effects.
We could read into it something else rather than it
and
all
in the
being
murdering of Sean Bean, although,
Yes.
well, although they don't.
God,
he
it's Sean
doesn't.
Bean's eyeball.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
you sort of, it's one of those where you look away, but you sort of think, oh, I haven't seen anything like this, and maybe it is gratuitous, but at the same time, there was something simple and like it sounds ridiculous to say it was a kind of simpler time, but you know what I mean,
Right,
in a way. I went from sort of thinking it was over ambitious and not boring. It was never boring. Although there are great long periods of sort of just focusing on people's faces. It took me a long time to know what was going on. I slowly started to like it more and more. I could see the ambition in it and think it was dragging me along with it. All the performances were great. It looked stunning, I thought, every bit of it. And there was a lovely soundtrack. As
Yeah,
there
the
is in
soundtrack
everything
was very good.
these
Yeah,
days.
it was.
Sort of like either musically or in just
Or
sound
natural
design.
sound was very good, yeah.
Just stunning. I like the fact that I've always loved in science fiction films where people are getting called back. You know, so right at the end, the son is called back, isn't he? And by Jennifer Jason Leigh, presumably.
Yeah.
She's a devil, that
Yeah,
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Leigh.
Yeah, never
Watch
trust
her.
her.
Whatever part
Overbite.
she's in.
Never been. Last Exit to Brooklyn, she's never been. Yeah, she's an interesting one. But so all of that, Andrea Riseborough, we're given quite a little bit of.
Yeah,
She's
because there was
good.
that whole narrative around Andrea Riseborough and her family.
And her family.
And that, if you actually unpack that in retrospect, she's been brutalised because look what happens to her family.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. But
about the moment with her husband, without giving that away.
Well, yes, but the moment with her husband is almost less graphic than the moment with her son. But the son wasn't her son.
No, absolutely.
In the end, so maybe her husband wasn't her husband.
I think her husband was her husband.
Oh, was he?
I think she was. I think it was all a revenge killing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
that moment where their blood united, I thought that was very
I thought
Father
that was
Cronenberg.
fabulous.
It's like here we have unity as blood of
Yeah.
son and
I love that.
father
That
and-
reminded me of what was that Joaquin Phoenix film where he was cradling somebody? Anyway, that was I loved that. That was a standout moment for me. Lots of standout moments actually. I loved messing around with the fabric of time. Could have done with more of that.
Yeah.
Said all of that, and I would give it. What would I give it? It went up and down. I would give it 93.
Well, again, very specific. I like 93. I think this was a really ambitious film.
Yeah.
And I don't, that often is a kind of criticism. I remember making something once and someone said, it's very ambitious. You're like, what do you mean it's ambitious? That means it's fallen short.
Yeah.
But it does, for me, it did fall a bit short. I thought Andrea Riseborough was very good. I thought Christopher Abbott was very good. I was convinced by the concept. It convinced me of the conceit of travelling back. I thought that was I thought the opening was very neatly done, and I wish there'd been a similar sense of neatness to the Christopher Abbott Possession, if you like, as much as the first one. So I thought that was nice. I liked the kind of biological tech. I love the idea of this sort of almost charger unit that goes into your head to communicate back with the kind of
It's such
with
a
the
simple
organisation.
idea, but so effective.
Yeah, I liked. It was very simple, very simply designed, low budget, but it worked. It played to its strengths. Soundtrack was good. I thought Sean Bean was horrible. When he's horrible, he's always very good at being horrible, isn't he?
Yeah.
I thought, as I've said already, it was gratuitous at times, but it is one of those films that the more you think about what was going on in it, and as I was sitting here just thinking about Andrea Riseborough's relationship with her husband/ex-husband, which is there all the way through, and her son, and you see what happens at the end, it's actually even more complicated in many regards than it first appears.
because she's having to practice being how she is with her family.
Yes, exactly,
isn't she,
exactly.
Yeah.
So the idea of someone losing themselves because they're becoming someone else all the time, that's all fascinating. I do like this idea of feedback. You know, we get visual feedback, we get oral sound feedback.
Yeah.
But the idea that you could get a sort of spiritual, biological, physical feedback, which is what this film is really about.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's interesting. Then it starts to feed into ideas of David Cronenberg's Videodrome and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very rich addition to the family. It's another family heirloom for the Cronenbergs to sit around at Christmas and watch. I would probably give it 87.
Oh, okay, so not that dissimilar, but
exactly.
And why lower than me though? What bothered you?
Because I thought it lost it
you
more
went the
across
other way,
the
didn't
arc.
you?
I started from quite a rich place and sort of began to think, oh no, it's making a few sort of bad decisions here. But I mean, it must be fun at the Cronenbergs at Christmas, isn't it?
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.